Hello, everybody. My name is Amiri Tulloch, and I am here with Kiara Alexa. We're here to discuss her album, Gemini and Other Lies. Kiara, thank you so much for being here with me. I'm excited to talk about this album with you.
Hello. LP.
This LP with you.
Yeah. I don't know if it really qualifies as an album. There are a lot of politics around that. But hi, everyone. My name's Kiara Alexa. Very happy to be here. Reconnect with Amiri. Yeah.
Yes, I have definitely been a long time, supporter of the music. And it's really cool to see the, continued journey artistically that you've taken. And also with this particular project, this particular LP, to see how you've drawn from older songs and also sourced some new ones as well. So I'm really excited to get into the music, get into the lyrics, get into the production. First of all, though, I just wanted to offer you an opportunity to introduce yourself through the album almost. So can you just talk about your role in the album? You're a multi-instrumentalist, singer, producer. Can you just describe how the album came about, what your creation was, and who are you as an artist?
Oh gosh. Yeah. So I obviously sang on the album. I wrote the lyrics, recorded most of the instruments. The ones that are not being played live, I produced using MIDI. And then I mixed all tracks and then sent them over to Elliot Duke. Shout out to him. He mastered the project, which was a great help because I have no idea how to do that.
Right.
But what was interesting about the LP was I didn't go into it knowing what I wanted it to be or knowing the title or the concept or anything like that. There were a number of songs that were already produced or were an idea in my voice memos somewhere. And then as I started to, produce and record the vocals for them, the underlying theme kind of came together just about unlearning things about myself or things that people told me to be or told me about myself. And then from there, a title came about, and there were a few other tracks that came kind of last minute. But it was very important for me to keep it kind of short. I feel, or I've heard from friends and family that the average listener can't really digest more than a few tracks. So I didn't want to do too much knowing that it wasn't going to be a full funded album rollout or something like that.
Right.
So, there were some things that I cut both due to wanting to keep that number, but also because the LP being multi-genre was really important to me. And if I had multiple songs that seemed like one genre, I didn't want one genre to overshadow any other. So those were kind of the things that I was thinking about as I was trying to figure out if it was finished or not. Yeah, that was a lot, but
no, there's a lot there that I wanted to pull apart. I wanted to first start though with I think the point that you bring up about multi-genre is really interesting, and especially in a day and age where it's a lot of algorithmic specificity. You're trying to get the specific genre and just have a clear sort of concise definition of a project or a piece of music, especially whether it's singles or LPs. So I guess did you feel like this was more an opportunity for you to just introduce listeners to yourself? This is the first LP. You released an EP called Ungrateful, which again features a couple of the songs. So just how did you see this album? Where are the songs coming from? You mentioned some of them had already been produced. Some of them were a little later. Where did you get the ideas for the musical ideas for this album, this LP?
Yeah, so I think I had a lot of ideas that I'd kind of put to the side in an effort to try to figure out some type of sonic branding that I then decided to abandon. And so I liked your phrasing that it was kind of an introduction to myself as a musician. There are so many genres that I really love and listen to and am inspired by. And I definitely wanted the LP to reflect that.
Definitely. And then, so when it comes to like the actual release part of things,
Mhm.
I wanted to quickly ask you about the cover art, which is really like, I think the first thing that people see when it comes to the music, obviously. So like, how did you approach the promotional materials? And not even that the cover art is like a promotion, but just like, yeah, how did you feel about the release? You're putting your face in the cover and like
Mhm.
very prominently, and just like, how did you think about this being a big release for yourself as an artist and a musician?
Yeah. So I think what's really interesting, every song or project that I've put out, the cover art um, ended up being something taken and edited from photo that had been taken a really, really long time ago.
Yeah.
So the photo that I edited for the LP cover art was taken in my dorm senior year with my friends. I have this friend Ethan who shot the photo. He got all this new equipment and wanted to try things out, and we were working
Right.
with like different lighting. So the red and the blue is actually in the photo that wasn't
Oh wow.
edited. So there was like a light on one side and on the other, and everybody was just kind of trying different things. But yeah, I definitely wanted to play with the Gemini imagery. But I especially liked how it's sort of like disintegrating off on the
Mhm.
sides. Um, just to kind of give that impression that like things are not what they seem. And I think that that's definitely a theme in the title of the LP as well as different songs in the LP. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so that photo and the end products kind of came surprisingly. It was something that just sort of I found in my camera roll. And I was like, oh,
Mhm.
maybe I could do something with this. And I started playing with it. And it turned out really nice. So yeah, and then I think I'm trying to remember what other promotional photos or things I've done. The artist photo was obviously an inspiration off, it was inspired from the cover art. And my artist logo was just something that my dad had sketched out
Mhm.
that we kind of digitized. That came way, way before this project was even a thought. So there was just a lot of things that sort of converged together and with
Right.
great timing.
Right.
Things that were like ideas or things being worked on the side that just kind of came together. Um, the best timing.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say like what was the timeline for this project? And
Mhm.
how did you develop and how long did it take to sort of bring these pieces together?
Yeah, so the time it's when I think about it, it's been a very long time. I think Gemini I produced that. It was the first song that I've ever produced before having a melody or lyrics. Usually it's lyrics and melody together and then production. Um, and so the production for Gemini happened years, I want to say 2 years ago, maybe
Uh,
more. And it was just kind of sitting in my computer. And then other songs, were in my voice memos,
yeah.
voice memos periodically. Because that's usually what happens. I come up with an idea, I sing it into voice memos, and then it sits there for a while. I like to say it marinates in the back of my head.
Mhm.
Um, so I think Gemini was the first thing to happen. So that was a few years ago, and then everything else was happening way out of order. Um, yeah, there was no like
Yeah.
specific timeline or nothing was done intentionally from the very beginning.
Right. Right. And so now that you've kind of had a little bit of time to step back from the release and just see how the music has been out there in the world, like what do you take away from the project? What do you take away from the process more so? And we'll get into the specific songs and all that, so we can like save that for that. But just as a whole, creating this LP in like 2 years in the making, how does it feel now that you're in this position? Because I always feel like after you release something, it probably shifts how you relate to it, but not for negative or for good, but just like, how does it feel for you?
Yeah. So I was in an interview with somebody else where I said this, but typically when I release songs, like as soon as it comes out, I'm like, okay, cool, I'll never listen to that again. Like it, and it's not that I don't want to, it's just more that it's run its course for me personally. Like I needed to write it, I needed to get it out, and now that it's out, I'm like, okay, cool, I can move on. What's the next thing? But I think with this LP specifically, I definitely find myself listening to it more than I have with other releases in the past, which is a very new and exciting experience for me. I think part of it has to do with the amount of space that I got from it as it was being mastered. So like I had some time to process and then go and hear the like polished finished product, which was great. And then I put it out. But I think the biggest takeaway from this is that I am capable of making whatever I want to make. Like I don't have to do, just because I used a lot of synths in the EP doesn't mean that I can only
Right.
do that or that I can never do it again. You know, I think that's been my biggest takeaway, that there's no need to box myself in any way, shape, or form. It's whatever I feel moved to write and create. And seeing that being received so well is definitely very validating.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I think to like have a body of work that can span multiple like interests that you have musically, and like not feel like that is a trap, but almost like a breaking open point. So now you can go from
Yeah.
wherever to wherever to wherever. So yeah, no,
Mhm.
that's dope. So